Okay, so I just wanted to make a quick video talking about some pseudocode I wrote for the final project. I know a lot of people were struggling with it. I just thought I'd share the way that I did it and hopefully it'll help some of you out. So I'm actually going to explain this in a couple different ways. First, I'm going to look at the code, and then I'm actually going to give a visual example of how it's done. Now, it should be noted that this does contain breaks, which Dave does not like, but it will get the job done. So actually what this code does is it breaks the entire thing into two pieces, a top half and a bottom half. And here's basically how it works. You use a for loop to check every single row. Each time you check a row, you're going to be recreating a variable that is a counter, one that keeps track of the current row and the current column. Alright, so how it works is basically each row has a corresponding diagonal that goes with it. If we take a look at row 0 or the first row, there's only one space there, so it's not really a diagonal. But if we look at the second row, there actually is a diagonal there. In this example, we're actually going to be looking at where row equals 1, and the column up and to the right of it, or the square. And the way we're going to check this is by using a while loop. This while loop will basically run as long as the current column is less than or equal to the row, and the row is not the bottom row. When this while loop runs, it basically checks to see if each space is owned by a player, and if it is, it'll actually count up until it is 4, in which case it'll actually break. If it is not 4, it'll set it back to 0, and it'll check a row up and to the right. It will then repeat this for every row going down, checking every square in a diagonal. It should also be noted that we don't run on the 7th column or the last row because that's actually going to be taken care of by the next part of code. This next part of the code works in a very similar way, except instead of checking each row and going up, it actually checks from the columns going up and to the right. Once again, we create our variables. We have another counter variable, another current row, and another current column. And this time we're going to be looking at each column and basically running this while loop until it hits the top row. And again, we're going to be checking if the current space is owned by someone. If it is, we'll count up. If it's greater than 4, we'll set it to a win. If it's not, we'll just set it to 0. Look at the row above and to the right, and that does the entire column all the way going to the right on the bottom half of the board. Of course, if all of these fail, it'll output a loss. Alright, so I just want to go over this again, this time with visuals. First, we're actually going to be checking the top half of the board, and then after that, we'll check the bottom half of the board. So once again, the for loop basically is going to start with each row and check the columns up and to the right for that row. So first we have the first row, and that basically just checks 1, which is never going to be 4, so we don't have to worry about that. Second, third, but once we get to the 4th, that's where we have to worry about it. So what it does is on this 4th row, or row number 5 basically, we look at here, we set the current row and current column to go up and to the right, so we look at this one. Then we do that over and over until finally at the end, if it is 4, it's a win. If it is not 4, well, it's going to check the next row, which would be this row. It'll do the exact same thing, go up and over, up and over, up and over. If it's a win, cool. If not, it'll try again and again until it eventually finds a win.